This is a project that some of you all know, and Ed Couch is a real contact zone, I will tell you. It really is, and this is a project that is about 3 years overdue. It's been through a few school boards, a couple of contractors, and a lot of conversation. But it is a wonderful project, and what intrigued me about this community was the fact that there is a foundation that for many years has attempted to not only preserve but also educate people in this community about their history, their heritage, their stories that maybe are not in the standardized textbooks of the state of Texas, and to do it in ways that really connect with the community through music, through dance. And this community, correct me if I'm wrong, has a very high percentage of sending young people to Ivy League schools. And I was absolutely amazed that this very poor community found the strength of will to find about $8 million to build a performing arts center where none existed. Now, $8 million is not a lot of money to build a theater. And so there was a lot of negotiation to get this project where it is today. It is intended to have monumental, this is about 120 feet of mural along the side of the building, but we couldn't really afford 120 feet of mural. And this is the front of the building. And actually there are some really wonderful modern buildings in that area that are garages, to tell you the truth, that have these wonderful shade structures. So this is a glass box, the lobby, sitting in front of the theater proper that you will enter into. And this was a process that was slightly different because it was a dialogue not only with teachers and administrators and students, but we also involved two people, one of them from the Smithsonian and one of them who is the world's best scholar on what they call corridos. Corridos is border folk music. And there are modern corridos and there are historic corridos. And these songs, which have a very distinct structure, are the ways that ranches, individuals, towns told a story about themselves. And in fact, this particular community has what they call a football corrido called La Máquina Amarilla, or the Yellow Machine. And so we decided that the building should itself be a corrido, a place that through its mission would continue to tell stories about the community. At this point then, we have teachers, school board members, students themselves, museum directors, musicologists, cultural historian, and a member of the Smithsonian's curatorial team working on this building. Because we couldn't afford to really muralize what in the end was about 150 square feet of building at a scale of about 80 feet high. We had to find a way to do it inexpensively. And so you can look at that building and see kind of tapestry set up as kind of the tradition of fabric work that is such an important part of Latino and Latin American culture. But the truth of the matter is that that pattern was really derived from sound waves. So it is both connected to a larger intellectual idea and to a regional idea. And to tell you the truth, the students hated it. And they were probably right. If I had to do this building, if I had an unlimited budget to do this building, I would have done it very differently. But in the end, I think we're all very satisfied with how it will be completed.
Those connect with the corridors? Yes.
Yes, they do. This actually is the sound pattern of their football corrido. And this is the building under construction.
What is the material that those colors are on?
Paint. It's painted on. It's painted on directly on. It's got a sealer to it, but it's painted directly onto the concrete.
Could you say more about how you would do it differently?
I would have loved to have had about $500,000 and to have been able to afford to curate a mural and to let the muralist actually work with the students to paint the mural. But a mural of that scale can be much more expensive than that. I think we might have been able to afford it for about $500,000. In fact, at one point we had contracted with one of the most important emerging Latino artists in the country, a gentleman by the name of Vincent Valdez, who's now become way too famous. We couldn't even, I don't think we'd be able to get him for $500,000. But quite honestly, this is a project where a lot of things had to go. There was theater competing with music, and when you have a budget of, $7 million to do what they're doing for $100 million in Dallas and Houston, you have to make decisions. So I think the one thing I would do differently is the way that the mural is expressed. I think we found a cool way to do it, but I would have liked it to have been more pictorial. It could have been a historical timeline. It could have been expressed differently. This is a project that I am working on right now that was a jury design competition for the city of San Antonio. It is going to be the tallest building in San Antonio, and that's it. It was amazing to me when I started working on this project that the skyline of San Antonio, for being such a... When visitors come to... There are all sorts of visitor surveys that say that people come to San Antonio expecting to see the unique culture of the community, and really what that means is that they expect to come to a city that has a distinctive Latino flair. Except when you look at the skyline of San Antonio, it is almost devoid of color and exuberance. And so we decided that this needed to be a building that changed that. This part of downtown San Antonio is what was the site of the World's Fair in 1968. And the design of the fairgrounds itself was very controversial because many historic buildings gave way in order to create the modern architecture of the time. We decided that Hemisphere 68 really needed to be the precedence for the design of this building. That back then, saying that San Antonio needed to evolve into a modern city was a legitimate idea. And so we set about how you would express that in 2005. And so we had a series of focus groups with the community, everywhere from graffiti artists to educators to politicians, and in the end, a series of public meetings with the community itself in an unrehearsed, unpracticed dialogue to decide whether this was an appropriate architectural statement for San Antonio. The idea was, you can see it from the other side, this would be the west side of San Antonio looking back east, and you can see how incredibly important this building is, sitting right next to what we call the Tower of the Americas. And this right now, this Marriott Hotel is the tallest building in San Antonio. This building right here is the first major public building that my firm ever did in 1939, which itself was an exploration of Spanish-influenced classical architecture. And this is what we're going to do about 2 blocks over. This is a mural that really gave voice to the building. It was a very famous mural by Juan O'Gorman, famous Mexican muralist known from the 1960s, and it's called The Confluence of the Civilization of the America. So one half of this mural is the indigenous people of these continents, and the other half is European tradition, and in the center of the mural is San Antonio. And so we decided that the building would respond to that design statement that was made by an artist, not an architect. And so this building is the European tradition, and this building is the indigenous tradition. And the colors are derived from both, the European being cooler and the indigenous being more fiery. It's a very difficult project in that you can see that it has to be respectful of the most famous human scale place in all of Texas, quite honestly, the San Antonio Riverwalk, and at the same time, it has to be successful at 48 stories tall. That logo that I showed you in the beginning was the logo for Hemisphere 68, and kind of the grand window looking into the lobby of the hotel mimics that shape. There is a famous kind of folkloric material in Mexico called hojalata, which is Mexican tin work, and so all of the ballrooms, etc., are in a frame of this hojalata, which is a material of the people. When Mexico, when they couldn't afford Mexican silver, they did it out of tin, and the base of the building is what you expect to find in Texas. It's a material that was used back on that hill country house I showed you. It's limestone, but it evolves into this more aggressive architecture. And that'll just show you how complex the stacking of that is.